So my name's Trisha, and I'm a peer support for the New Life Clinic, which is right over here off of Blaine Street. Just gonna put that plug in real quick, because just like he said, I love to steal you guys, because you guys are amazing. But I'm gonna start off with identification. So for me, like how I can identify is, for me, I've been to prison, I've been to jail, I've been there more times than I can count. My story began that way, like when I went out, I went all out. And I went to prison first, no jail stops except for when I was fighting my case. I did almost 6 years in prison, and my story isn't that I used before, my story is that I used after, right? So when I got out of prison, I felt lost in the world. When I got out of prison, I felt like I didn't understand, I didn't know where I was gonna go. I had a parole officer that was about to retire, and the first thing she said to me is, I'm gonna do everything I can to put you back into prison. So when I got out, I struggled because I knew I was gonna go back in, because that's what she said, right? And I was in a place of low self-esteem. I was, no longer with my kids, I had lost them. Like I have that story where I lost everything, and so when I got out, I was lost in the world. I didn't know how to do anything because I learned how to be an inmate. I learned how to survive in prison. That's what I knew when I got out. So when I got out, of course, what do we know how to do best? It's the hustle, right? So I had to learn how to continue on doing the bad things. And in that, I ended up being an addict, right? So I made poor choices, poor decisions, and was with all the wrong people, right? So I let the disease totally distract me and discourage me and attack me, right? And I became the addict that, once again, after getting her kids back, lost her kids. Like I was the addict that became homeless and was one of those people that you literally see on the streets. That's my story. Like, this is nice that I can dress like this today. Like, I'm grateful that I could look like this today, but this isn't my story. Like, my story is I was homeless on the streets and I was talking to myself while I was walking down the street. Like, my story is, like, I was the tweaker that was like, what's going on? Hi. That was me. That's my story. Like, that's my truth. And sometimes it's hard to share that truth, right? Sometimes it's hard to say, like, there was nights when I was having to find myself walking around at nighttime because I couldn't lay my head down on the street, because who knows what would happen to me at nighttime. So I could only sleep in the bushes in the daytime because I'm a woman, you don't know what might happen, right? Like, I was that same addict that when I knocked on my daughter's door, she would stand at the door and she would peek her head out like, what do you want, Mom? That was me, right? I just need a place to sleep. Please let me sleep at your house. Can I sleep on your couch, please? No, Mom, no, right? Like, that's my truth. My addiction and my disease got me so gone that nobody wanted anything to do with me, and I didn't know how I was gonna stay clean. I didn't even know how I was gonna get clean, right? Like, one thing I did really well was I used, right? So with that, like, I didn't go back to prison, but I kept going back to jail. Like, I kept catching cases. I couldn't seem to get myself out of jail. I couldn't seem to live a regular life, but in all honesty, jail was great for me because I had a place to sleep and I got clean. Like, for those couple of days that I'd be in jail, or the couple of weeks or a couple of months, whatever it was, I got some clarity. And I would like have these high hopes. I'm gonna get out, I'm gonna get clean, I'm gonna do great, my life's gonna be amazing. But what happened is when I was in that cell to get released, the first thing I did was think about the dope. I couldn't wait. Like, all that time that I had all these goals and I'm gonna get out and I'm gonna do good and this time this is what I'm gonna do. As soon as I got out, I didn't do that, right? So I went to the same people, places, and things, and I continued to get high again. Until one day I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. Like, sometimes our best stories come out of our worst experiences, right? And like, I had a really severe, terrible domestic violence situation that I was in. And I share all the time, like, my story is, like, I was kidnapped, tortured, beaten, and left on the side of the road. And I was tortured for hours on end. And I share this with you because if that incident never happened, I wouldn't be here today, and I know that with all my heart and soul. Because that was like my identifying moment, that I can't live like this anymore or I'm gonna die. I can't do this anymore. And that's when I was blessed enough to get the opportunity to get into a program. And when I got into that program, it was an all-women's facility. And I remember getting into that program, my case manager identified, and she had my story. And like that case manager for the first time shared about her addiction and her domestic violence. And I could identify with another human being that understood my story. And I didn't have to feel bad about my story. And I was able to, for the first time, share my story with another human being. And in that moment, she then took me to a 12-step meeting. When she took me to that meeting, everything changed in my life. And there's somebody in this room that her husband always identifies and states, when we identify, we're not identifying with, you might not have the same exact story as me. You might not have the same story, and that's okay. But what we can all identify is with those feelings of desperation, those feelings of hurt, that feeling of loss, that feeling of insecurities. That's where we all relate with one another. It doesn't matter if you're an addict or not, if you do drugs or not. We all have been in the same situation of being in jail, being in prison. That we can all relate to, right? But how do we feel once we get there, right? How do we identify with one another? We identify with those feelings of loss and hurt. And it's hard to come here and be able to trust a probation officer. When I first walked into DRC, I'm not gonna lie, I was like, she has a badge. I'm gonna go this way. You know, it's hard. But I've gotten to know her as a human being, and she's amazing, and she cares about you guys. Like, I got to walk into the rooms of the 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous, and I got to learn that there was a new way of life, right? I got a sponsor. Like, I worked some steps. I started to learn, why am I like this? Why can't I stay clean? And for the first time in my life, starting to work like a set of steps. I go to meetings all the time. I was about to show them on the board. Just pretend like there's 12 steps right there. You know, like, I got to learn about myself and identify who I am in my feelings, right? Because we don't like feelings, because once we feel, we hurt, right? I started to go to therapy, and I found out that I have mental health challenges. Never would have guessed, right? You know, and you start to identify the two, right? Like, maybe I'm an addict because of my mental health. Maybe because I have mental health because of my addiction. Who knows where it started, the chicken or the egg? Who knows? The point is like, we heal and we get better. And we are only going to do that by allowing somebody into our lives. Like, I have a sponsor who has a sponsor who has a sponsor. I have sponsees. We all work steps. And today, like, the greatest gift that I have is that I get to make a living amends every single day to people that are on probation and parole. Like, I get to work with each and every one of you, and I get to help others. That's what I get to do, and that's my living amends to all my prison time and all the crap that I did to other people, because I did some dirty stuff to get my dope, right? And I'm sure that a lot of you can identify with that. And like, today I get to give back by being the best version of me and giving this, right? And I share about this, and then I'm gonna wrap it up. But when I interviewed for the position for the County of Riverside, I had no hope that I would get the job, right? I've been to prison, I've been to jail, I have a rap sheet. One of my charges is like 215 charges and counts. So like, I was so scared, right? And I remember my sponsor telling me, like, just do it. What's the worst thing that can happen? You don't get the job. But see, today I get to have hope, right? And that hope is what got me to go ahead and apply anyways, because it's not gonna be the end of my story if I didn't get the job. But here's the better part. I go into the interview, thank God it was on Zoom, they couldn't see me sweating. And there's people that have titles like doctor. And there's people with titles of being like therapists. And here I am, part of my interview is sharing my story. And when the question is asked, how can you identify with people on probation or parole? I'm like, well, let me tell you how I can identify. In this outfit, I might not look like I've been there, and thank you for saying that, because I know I heard somebody say it. Go ahead, say it. But we live a life of recovery today, and recovery is what we see, right? So like I got to share my story and got to tell where I've been and how I want to be that support, because I don't want people to get lost in the system like I felt like I did. I want to be that gap. And so, like, if you're here and you're not sure where you need to be, what you need to do, you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, me too. Like, if you're here because you have to, I've been here because I've had to too. Like, we all have our me toos. I know that most of you don't want to be here anymore, like going and doing the same thing over and over again. So, like, allow us to be your hope. Allow us to be your support, even on those days, like, when you don't know how to get through the day. Like, call us. Let us be there for you, because we can identify. We're peers. That's our job, is to identify. Like, we are going to understand you in a way that other people will never understand you. And that's where the peer position comes. So I'm excited that Sam's going to explain to you about the peer role and what that does. So anyways, my name's Trisha. Thank you for allowing me to be here.
What happened to you this weekend? What did you do this weekend?
Oh, okay, let me tell you this story real quick. Haha, I don't have to wrap it up, my supervisor said. I'm just kidding. Okay, so I have 6 years clean. I forgot to identify that. May 21st, 2015 is my clean date. So I just celebrated 6 years clean. My story is not the same as everyone's. We all like do whatever. So anyways, I just moved into my own place this weekend. My very own place. Like, we're talking about the homelessness. We're talking about all those things. Like, also this week was 1 year since I have been working here at the County of Riverside. And 1 year later, here I am being able to have my own apartment, you know? And the gifts of that, I can tell you even more. I walked into my apartment with not one thing except for clothes. And not only did people donate to me and help me, I have an entire house furnished. I have an entire house that has stuff inside of it from people in the program, coworkers here at work, because people believe in me and because people see. And like, this is the opportunities of what it is. It might have taken 6 years to get here, but it doesn't matter how long it takes. It's just like what Lacey was talking about. It's the give back up, right? Whenever we're asked, like, what's our greatest asset? It's that resilience. And if you don't know what really resilience is, that's about bouncing back, right? Bounce back, right? I'm all about that bounce back, right? And so, like, I believe in each and every one of you, and I know you guys can do it. Okay.